Something that happened today that caught my attention, Amanda. The State Department put out a statement. It almost never does this, saying the United Nations is going to have a conference this week on a two-state solution. We are refusing to recognize it. We don't believe it's the right thing. This, of course, a couple days after French leader Macron said that he would recognize Palestine as a state. The State Department standing up strongly to those movements. Our first guest today, I'm sure, is going to have something to say about that. He's been to the region a lot. He knows it well. In fact, he's one of the first, I believe, meet with the Syrian leadership. He is an Indiana congressman and a good friend of this show, Congressman Marlin Stutzman. Congressman, good to have you on the show, sir.
John and Amanda, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
It is great to have you on. There's a lot to celebrate in just the announcements that seem to come every few hours out of the Trump administration. This EU deal, big energy purchases from the United States, big tariff revenues, hundreds of billions of dollars. I'd like to get your reaction to it.
Well, first of all, I've said it many, many times, is that President Trump is the strongest diplomat. He's the strongest negotiator our country's had since President Reagan. And he, again, is just showing the ability to create these deals. And, one of the things, of course, we all know that America has the strongest military in the world, but I think sometimes we forget that we also have the strongest economy. And that can be used for good in these negotiations rather than just resorting to war. And so President Trump knows how to go into these countries and flex the muscle that the American economy has and pull these deals together. Now, this is going to give us some great access to the European markets. And it's also going to reset the trade policy that we have needed for a long, long time. We're a great country. We're a very generous country. But people are taking advantage of us, and President Trump is the first to say that for, as a president for many, many years. And now he's going around the world truly resetting the trade table that needed to be done for a long time that many of us didn't even realize how bad it was.
Yeah.
Well, and Congressman, there's something else in this that I think is actually good for the EU that not many people are talking about, and that is that a lot of the tenets of this agreement have to do with deregulating in Europe. And sure, that's great for the United States, that's great for our end of the trade deal, but isn't that also good for Europe?
Okay, absolutely. And President Trump was also, one of the loud voices in telling Europe that they need to figure out their immigration policy as well, because they're seeing a lot of changes in Europe because of the immigration policy that these woke leaders in Europe have followed. And so, no, you're exactly right. While they may not always agree with this, I think in the long run, they're going to realize that, that reality, it will set in, and that good policy on energy, good policy on immigration, good policy on whether it's taxes and the economy, those are all good for them as well. And, we're seeing here in Northeast Indiana where I'm going to have a job fair here later this week. And we've got 60 companies that are going to be there representing almost 2,000 job openings in Northeast Indiana. And I'm sure that's just the tip of the iceberg, because there's a lot of optimism right now in growth. A couple of factors that President Trump has addressed already is taxes, trade through tariffs. And boy, that last piece that I think would make a big difference is if we would see an interest rate reduction coming out of the Fed. That would just really be a strong move for the American economy to take off even faster than what it is.
I think President Trump may have hinted that to the Fed Chairman when he was with him. He seemed to be going in that direction. We'll see if we get that. Congressman, there's from good to Europe for good to Indiana. The Agriculture Department, we had Brooke Rollins on the show last week, moving bureaucrats out of Washington closer to the people they serve. Indiana farm country going to be the beneficiary of that. I'd like to get your take on that.
You know what? I've believed in this for a long time. I was first elected to Washington in 2010 and just couldn't believe how big the federal government agencies are. And, here they are. They're all inside the bubble there in Washington, D.C. And being from a family farm and coming from business, you often think, where are these people getting their information? The best place they could possibly get it is actually out in the real world where things are happening. And that way they're communicating with agricultural leaders. They're talking with the farmers out on the farm and hearing what the needs are. So the fact that President Trump and this administration are actually doing this is remarkable. Whether it's Department of Energy, that needs to be the next one. Of course, the USDA, which is a large bureaucracy, that one definitely needs to be kind of pulled apart and spread these people around the country, I think they'll serve the American people much better. And so it's a great move. And I know that Governor Braun here in Indiana is very excited to welcome them here.
I love that. Sir, on that topic, Apeel is a product, I believe it's a product of Bill Gates, but a lot of people are very upset about it because it has been, I believe, deemed to be certified organic, but we don't really know what's in it. I think 97% of the ingredients in it, we just don't know, and you have some legislation regarding that. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this is another great example, Amanda, of why we need these bureaucrats out in Indiana and across the country and other places. But there's obviously an effort to make sure that our food is healthy and it's better for us, especially through this MAHA movement, which I'm a big fan of. And I always was taught by my parents that I am what I eat. And so I couldn't just eat beef all the time. I had to eat my vegetables and fruits. And but this particular product we don't know what's in it. They're using it for primarily organic fruits and vegetables, and they're portraying it as a coating to help the shelf life of our tomatoes that would be organic, or apples and other products. And they got this through the USDA for approval as a fungicide. And so we don't know all of the chemicals and the product that's inside of this. And this was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to this company. Again, it may be perfectly fine, but at the same time, we don't know. Right. And transparency is really key here. And I know that we've all had some suspicions of Bill Gates after the COVID vaccines and some of his comments around the world about vaccines and global population. And to me, when I heard about this, I felt like this is something really important that they needed to reveal on a label what actually was in this product. So we filed a bill and looking forward to getting some sort of notice in Washington on this, because it really is important, and it goes right along with RFK's agenda to make us all healthier, and knowing what is on these coatings really is important, especially when it comes to chemicals.
Yeah, no doubt transparency can be such a great solution for that. Sir, before we let you go, you are a co-sponsor for the Equal Representation Act, and it's a reminder that even though we've closed the border down pretty quickly, there are still big issues to be resolved, including making sure that sanctuary cities and states don't benefit by allowing illegal aliens into their community so they can be counted for census, representation, apportionment, federal funds. Tell us why this legislation is so important.
Well, we've watched over the last 4 years during the Biden administration this open border policy, and Democrats are even saying this out loud. We all know, and we all knew in our heart that Democrats wanted an open border because it would affect the elections one way or the other. And last week I saw that a Democrat made that comment out loud. And so I called my staff right away and I said, look, this is a real problem. Here they are saying that they want illegals to be counted in our census because it affects the way that the congressional districts are drawn up. And so there was already another bill that had been filed already. I wanted to co-sponsor that because at the end of the day, there's a lot to clean up when it comes to immigration. President Trump is doing it. The border is closed, 0 illegal crossings as of the month of June. And now, of course, they are going to try to utilize these illegals across the country to dilute the people that truly do have the right to vote in our districts. And so this is a big issue that I'm gonna watch very closely, and we'll amend the bill if there's one that's amending, do everything I can to draw attention to this. And I think that the majority of Americans would support this as well, unless they're just simply going to be a partisan hack.
Yeah, so important. Common sense things. That's what you've been working on since you got to Washington. We're now getting it through Washington, which is, I think, welcome for the American people. Congressman, a great honor to have you on the show today. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation as always.